Welcome to DABCC Radio,
where smart people listen.
Virtualization and Cloud Talk,
Featuring cutting-edge solutions from the hottest companies around the globe.
Broadcasting from the DABCC offices in sunny Sarasota, Florida.
Surrounded by computers, books, and Legos.
A Microsoft MVP, Citrix Charter CTP, VMware vExpert.
And your host, Douglas Brown.
Welcome to another episode of DABCC Radio. We have another Citrix Ready episode for you guys today. I'm looking forward to this one. We have StorMagic on the line. We have a gentleman who was a longtime Citrite, who's now over at StorMagic, named Lee Bushen, and he is going to bring us up to date. Who's StorMagic, what they're doing, how do they work with Citrix? You know the drill. So I'm really excited about that. And then we also have Chris Edwards back on the line with us from Citrix and Citrix Ready. And he'll add a bunch of color commentary and his views and Citrix's views on how they work together and what that means to you guys. So with no further ado, let's just dive into my interview with StorMagic. Okay, guys, thank you so much for taking the time to do this with us, with me. I look forward to this. So we have Chris Edwards back in the line from Citrix Ready, and Chris has done one of these before. So thanks, Chris, for being back on. And then we have, as I mentioned earlier, we're going to talk with StorMagic, and we have Lee Bushen with us. And let's get to it. So, guys, as always, the first thing we do is introduction. So let's start with you, Lee. So, Lee, who are you, and what do you do over at StorMagic?
Okay, well, thanks for having me on, Doug. I'm Lee Bushen. As you said, I'm the Technical Enablement Manager for StorMagic. I joined StorMagic about 3 months ago. I previously spent the last 11 years working for Citrix, of all places. I've got a long history of background in server virtualization. I came into Citrix on the acquisition of XenSource back in 2007. And now, I spent probably the last 7 years looking after XenApp and XenDesktop product enablement in EMEA, doing masterclasses, that kind of thing.
Very cool, very cool. So you're an old Citrite like me.
Absolutely.
I love it. And then current Citrite, Chris, can you tell us who are you, and a little bit about yourself, and what do you do at Citrix Ready?
Yep. Hey, Doug, glad to be back. So my name is Chris Edwards, and my background is actually mostly in IT. I've done some consulting, some IT hosting, some enterprise IT, and I actually worked in the IT department at Citrix for a few years before transitioning into product marketing. So now I get to be an advocate for Citrix products. I do blogs, demo videos, webinars, podcasts, industry events, anything just to get in front of customers and get the word out about Citrix products.
That's cool. And I love the fact that you work for, within IT, because you really know it, right? You had to make it work.
Absolutely.
It's difficult, but you know what I mean.
Yep.
So, okay, so let's get going. So let's start with you, Chris. Maybe you can tell us a few fun stories. You've been in IT, right? So an IT guy. So tell us some fun stories of mistakes that you've seen companies make in setting up their storage for their server virtualization, and and a bit about how maybe you think StorMagic solves the small data center and edge branch office issues.
Sure. Yeah. So just being in IT and consulting, I've seen companies make all sorts of mistakes when setting up their virtual environments. Both for Citrix and non-Citrix workloads. And I particularly remember one Citrix deployment. This was about 2,000 users, and we were transitioning from XenApp all installed on physical servers, and we were moving to a fully virtualized deployment, which was on par for the time. But the leadership, the sponsors of the project that controlled the budget, they didn't want any SANs, so no centralized storage. And the reason was that it was too expensive and it was too difficult to set up. So it just added complexity. And the end result, a few years later, they have a bunch of standalone hosts that are running out of space, right? And I've seen, consulting companies and, trying to get set up with desktops as a service back in the day, make this mistake as well. We're just going to put in a bunch of standalone hosts for the same reason. It's too expensive. It's too complex, right? And, now at Citrix in product marketing, I get to talk to a lot of customers. I talked to a customer, a regional bank with numerous branches, and for, security and high availability reasons, they want all their apps and desktops located at each branch location. So they really need a simple solution to spin up their virtual apps and desktops at each of these branch locations.
Makes sense. Lee, can you elaborate on any challenges?
Yeah, so, really, as Chris says, there's a lot of businesses out there, especially a lot of small businesses out there, that they have this kind of dream of allowing their users to work from, any device, any location, the Citrix dream, effectively. But they want to make sure that their data and their apps remain on site, to make sure that they're, compliant and secure, for that matter. Problem is, to have a fully highly available desktop environment can actually cost a lot of money, right? So, typically a SAN can constitute over, 50% of the budget of a virtualization project. So for these guys, this customer base, the concept of low cost hyper-converged infrastructure is a really attractive solution. Also, a lot of larger companies might have pretty much the same sort of needs in some ways as smaller companies. Maybe they've got a small tactical deployment of virtual desktops, or maybe it's a specific project they're working on, a certain department that they want to, provision desktops for. So, there's small business and small data center stuff, but also, there's a lot of highly distributed companies out there that would really love to centralize their virtual desktop infrastructure, as, a lot of Citrix customers will try to do. But the reality is they've got these business critical apps and often quite high volumes of data being generated at these remote sites by, machinery, manufacturing plant, IoT devices, that kind of thing. So, it's not really possible to actually centralize all of that back to a data center. People like retail chains that have point-of-sale systems, as I say, manufacturing plants and remote sites. So for those guys, what they want is a fully secure and high available system running at each of these branch offices. But also they still want to maintain control of that infrastructure from a central point and manage that infrastructure from a central point.
Makes sense. Totally makes sense. So, Chris, maybe usually I have Lee introduce his company, but maybe you can help here. Can you introduce StorMagic and talk about some of the benefits of StorMagic from the Edge branch? Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. So what I like about StorMagic is that it's an incredibly simple solution, and the fact that you can run it on any x86 hardware is huge in terms of flexibility, and also that it's a very inexpensive solution, right? Because when you're talking to decision makers and the people who control the budget, they're looking at the cost, right? And with that, you get all the high availability and synchronization and failover. And if we just think about the SMB market, I think there's a lot of room for Citrix to grow in this segment, which makes StorMagic, with all of this simplicity, flexibility, and cost savings, the perfect partner for going after the small and mid-market together.
Perfect. Lee, maybe can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, sure. So really, to introduce StorMagic are a virtual storage company. Okay, we enable hyper-converged solutions and take the need away for a SAN by taking the local storage on your hypervisor, so local hard drives, local SSD drives, etc., and we mirror those drives and then present that mirror back to the hypervisor as a standard iSCSI array, just like you would do if you had a normal SAN. What this allows you to do is use the native capabilities of your hypervisor to give you things like live migration capabilities between the nodes, load balancing, and also, most importantly, I suppose, high availability. We've also got a number of other technologies in the product, like, for instance, we've got memory caching and also SSD caching as well in the product. So you can save money by using much less expensive magnetic spinning media in the solution, while still getting great performance. And also we've recently introduced data at rest encryption into the product as well. For those people who are worried about security at branch office. You know what it's like, these branch offices, right? Quite often servers are sitting in storerooms or even under desks, that kind of thing. So the risk of data breaches is actually much more real at a branch office than it would be at a centralized data center where you have badge passes, security guards, and all that kind of thing.
Very cool. Very, very cool. Makes a lot of sense to me. I've actually known StorMagic for a while, so I think it's I like what you guys do, and I like how it sort of integrates in with Citrix. And now one of the big things is Citrix, of course, is Citrix Cloud, right? Anyone listening to this should probably be familiar with Cloud, but if not, Chris, maybe you can give us sort of an introduction to Citrix Cloud and XenApp and XenDesktop service.
So Citrix Cloud has had a lot of momentum, and Citrix Cloud is a platform. It's not a public cloud. So it can be thought of as a management plan that spans multiple services. So what we've done is we've taken what would be our traditional on-prem products and delivered them as easily consumable services. And we're expanding on these services with new services and new capabilities. So the benefit to customers is that the core cloud services are operated, maintained, managed, upgraded by Citrix. And then you still get all of the management functions and all of the management consoles that you're used to. So from the XenApp and XenDesktop perspective, there's no more weekend Citrix upgrades. The service is always up to date for you. You just pick where to spin up your VDAs, your virtual desktops, and your virtual application servers. And this can be, any cloud, any hypervisor, et cetera, hyper-converged infrastructure like StorMagic. And, one of the key benefits where the XenApp and XenDesktop service really shines is around, it kind of has built-in business continuity as well as, hybrid cloud and multi-location flexibility that you get out of it. So it's just very seamless to spin up your VDAs at new locations, branch locations, or DR sites. And we actually have a blog post that recently went out with a large insurance company that chose Citrix Cloud specifically for the business continuity perspective, right? And I've, other use cases, I've talked to customers that choose Citrix Cloud because they have limited budget or limited headcount. So one customer was a public school county. We should have their story coming out soon. And, they're delivering virtual apps and desktops to all their students. And they went from zero Citrix footprint, zero Citrix knowledge, to up and running with Citrix Cloud with limited staff, delivering, graphic accelerated workspaces to all their students, right? So pretty incredible. And, what we've done with StorMagic is we have a built-in integration with StorMagic SvSAN and the Citrix Cloud XenApp and XenDesktop service. So right from StorMagic's workspace appliance controller wizard, you can kick off the workflow to automatically deploy the Citrix Cloud connectors. And from there, you're ready to take your master image and start spinning up your virtual apps and your virtual desktops on your StorMagic infrastructure. So, between the two solutions, Citrix Cloud and StorMagic, there's synergies in terms of benefits. The simplicity, the flexibility, the scalability, and then with the automated integration, this really gives customers the reassurance when making a buying decision that, you're getting a fully integrated and fully supported solution from the cloud service to the on-prem infrastructure, and they can get up and running very quickly with this simple integrated solution.
Okay, Chris, that sounds great. I love what Citrix is doing with the Citrix Cloud. I think it's a nice, hybrid into the cloud, right? And I think it's a really great strategy. So that being said, Lee, can you talk a bit about maybe some reference architectures with that you guys have? I know you have one with Cisco and Lenovo.
Yeah, sure. So we announced at Synergy that we have a relationship with Cisco and Citrix on the Workspace Appliance. We're going to be doing something very similar with Lenovo soon. And for the last month, I've been working on performance testing of this solution for the Workspace Appliance based on the Cisco ISR hardware, branch office router, with E-Series blades, and also with the Lenovo X Series hardware as well, both running StorMagic SvSAN as the storage layer underneath it. I've been running login VSI tests, and I've been getting some really great numbers out of our 2-node clusters with a system that will cost you, typically around $20,000 to $25,000 all in for the hardware and SvSAN licenses. You kind of get 2 fully loaded servers with StorMagic licenses for that price. You can service something around 230 to 250 XenApp users, or about 175 to 200 full, dedicated desktop users as well. So, there's a lot of stuff there. We're still testing this, and we're expecting those numbers to go a little bit higher during time. Of course, if you want full high availability of that, you'll need to cut those numbers down a bit and plan for failover between those 2 nodes. But I think you'll agree for under $25,000, that's a lot of bang for your buck. I found that the workloads, typically, if you want to know roughly what's been going on, they've been maxing out on CPU power. So it's been CPU has been the bottleneck in this. And sometimes memory, if we're talking about the VDI desktops. The storage layer with SvSAN hasn't really been taxed at all in any way underneath all of this. When I've been launching up my 200 desktops or so, it's been handling about 3,000 to 3,500 IOPS in that boot storm really, really well. I've been seeing cache hit rates from our caching technology of around, for the memory cache, around 85%. So about 85% of the IOPS are actually coming straight out of memory cache. The next layer down from that we've implemented is an SSD cache in this particular reference architecture. That's taking 12%. And really what I'm seeing is only 3% of the data is actually coming from the magnetic disk itself. So this is a great performant solution. And really, one other thing I'd like to add is, what it's like when you're doing a proof of concept, right? Or you're testing, or you're doing load testing, that kind of things. There are technical challenges, right? Things go wrong with all this, okay? So, I've had them all during the last 5 or 6 weeks. I've had hardware issues. One of the servers, we had a BIOS upgrade, firmware upgrade, and the NIC died, okay? We've had OS problems with Windows, running like a dog, downloading Windows updates and doing virus scans, that kind of thing. We've had Adobe Acrobat popping up strange dialog boxes and crashing login VSI. I've even had troubles with Citrix Cloud. Okay, and although to be honest, Chris, I'm sorry to say this was actually my fault. Sorry about that. I installed the Cloud Connector and forgot to install the Microsoft Virtual Machine Manager on that server. So that was my bad. But really, the only component that I haven't had any issues at all with during all of this testing is the storage layer. Okay, so it just runs. And I know you're going to say to me, yeah, well, you kind of would say that, right? Because you're from StorMagic. But just talking to you, Chris, and to you, Doug, as techie to techie here, this is really robust technology. Literally, I've had nothing go wrong with it the whole time I've been testing.
Very cool, very cool. Well, Lee, what type of desktop virtualization customers is this good for? Is there a sweet spot?
Yeah, so as we mentioned earlier, really, customers that are looking for low-cost solutions, simple storage solutions, small data centers, larger companies that have smaller projects, maybe tactical projects in there, and also for those who have edge computing needs. All of those guys are great candidates for this technology. In terms of StorMagic, we've got customers using StorMagic SvSAN for high availability in all sorts of different platforms. So, we have cruise companies that are actually using us on board ship, right? So they put one node at the bow of the ship and the other node at the stern of the ship, right? So I'm not quite sure how that works out with high availability. I don't think you can lose half a boat, right? And keep going, but that's what they do. We've got motorway service stations that are running a stretched cluster across the carriageways, one on each side, with fibre underneath the motorway. We've actually just helped Luxembourg Airport implement the first virtualized radar system. They've got a radar, an SvSAN node in the control tower, another one off-site for redundancy in there. We've got universities using us for things like DR solutions. So we've got a university that one of my tech guys put me onto yesterday. They've got 2 nodes, one in one campus, one 50 miles away in another campus. And they've done some clever stuff with networking that if one of the sites goes down, all of the virtual machines just restart at the other side, and they're good to go. We even have storage clusters sitting in fields and forests in Germany German Army is one of our customers. So, in terms of virtualization, it's great, and in terms of Citrix, it's great, but it's also really well deployed technology and well proven technology in the market.
Makes sense. Makes sense. So Lee, I have to ask, you mentioned earlier, of course you think it's great, and that makes sense. I hope so. But what about the competition?
Yeah, sure. So, there is a lot of competition out there. It's quite a saturated market in terms of who's doing hyper-converged, low-cost infrastructure. There are a lot of people out there. So what we're finding, though, is a lot of our customers are actually focused on scale-out, centralized infrastructure, so big data center infrastructures, okay? What we've done is we've optimized our product for small data centers and also for highly distributed organizations, such as, retail stores, financial companies with local branches, universities, that kind of thing. One of the things with two-node clusters, quite important, is that you have a quorum service to allow you to maintain data integrity if there's a failure of the network or something like that. And we've got this remote witness service that can sit on a server in your data center, in your main data center, and it can manage up to 1,000 remote sites with that single remote witness service. So instead of having to put a remote witness in every site and consume hardware and consume additional cost, we can actually do all that centrally. We've also got integrations into VMware's vCenter. So if you're using VMware as your hypervisor, we can allow you to do centralized management with a snap-in to vCenter and still maintain that across hundreds or 200, 300 sites. So yeah, as I mentioned earlier on, I've said it a few times now, we're extremely cost effective. Around 25,000 K works out typically. I'm not putting numbers around, but that's kind of nearly half the cost of some of the other solutions that are out there. And in terms of the actual software itself and how it sits on the hypervisor, it's actually got a really small footprint. So we can actually stand up a SvSAN system with as little as 1 gig of RAM for that virtual appliance and a single virtual CPU.
So, Chris, can you talk what StorMagic for Citrix Cloud means for the partners?
Yeah, so there's a huge opportunity for our consulting partners to take this solution to market and add a new hybrid cloud VDI solution to their portfolio. And it's really more than just the initial setup of the solution. So these partners can leverage the fact that the solution is so simple to set up and position other consulting services, such as image management with app layering and optimizing and configuring the user environment with our workspace environment management solution, and really deliver more value for the same amount of consulting dollars.
That's great. That's great. I like that. I mean, that's what it's all about, right? Great solution and affordable. What's not to love? So, I think that's all the questions I have. If there's anything I left out, please let me know. But, at the same time, Lee, I have to ask, if some people want to learn more, what do they need to do?
Sure. Well, the website is a great place to start. StorMagic.com. That's StorMagic.com. That's a great place to start. You can download some white papers there. There's all sorts of case studies about the product generally. There's also the reference architectures coming from Cisco and Lenovo. As I said, I'm working on the testing, the load testing for those at the moment. They'll be going up there soon too. You can actually download a free trial of the software from our website as well. In order to get it running, all you really need is a couple of pieces of commodity server hardware to get you started. Anything really that supports either VMware or Hyper-V is good to go. And also, don't forget, SvSAN is great for Citrix workloads, but it's also great for other small data center stroke edge computing needs as well.
Perfect. Guys, I love it. Like I said, I think that's what I have for you. So if there's anything we left out, please let me know. But on that note, I truly appreciate it. I love these podcasts. I always learn so much. And like I said, I know a bit about what StorMagic does, but I love what they're doing. I learned a little bit, and I love what you guys are doing with Citrix Cloud, because I think that's, like I said, I'm a big proponent of Citrix's really design around Citrix Cloud and how they're going about the idea behind it. I think is pretty darn cool. So on that note, we'll call it a podcast. Guys, if there's anything else, please speak up or forever hold your peace. And thank you.
Awesome.
Thanks
Doug.
for having us on.
Okay, that concludes another episode of DABCC Radio. As always, I want to thank my guests for today, Lee and Chris. Thank you guys so much for taking the time to do this with me. I hope you guys enjoyed the episode. If you did, please tell a friend. If you didn't, please tell me. And definitely check out dabcc.com for the latest and greatest, basically IT news, right? And head on over to Citrix Ready's site. Definitely check out what StorMagic is doing. And but most importantly, I thank you guys for listening. I hope you enjoy the show, really. We've been posting a bunch of neat new podcasts lately, so check out our back catalog, and I think you'll find some neat stuff there. What else do I say? But thank you all for listening to DABCC Radio.
CC?
DABC.
Say it again. DABCC.
DABC.
Can you say it again? DABCC.
DABC.
How about DABCC?
DABC.
DABCC.
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 DABCC.